Number 1, the aggregate function. The aggregate function allows you to summarize values, and it gives you the ability to ignore error values as well as hidden cells. So for example, here I have date, transaction number, account, and amount. What happens if I sum the amount column? Let's use Ctrl-Shift down to select the whole range, close bracket, press enter, I get an error. Why? Because I have an error in there. With the aggregate function, I get to ignore errors. Just start off with aggregate, then you get a lot of choices for the type of aggregation you want to do. In this case, I want to sum, so I'm going to go with 9. Next, I get my ignore options. I can ignore hidden rows, ignore error values, ignore hidden rows, error values, and nested, subtotal, and aggregate functions. Now the subtotal function is the older version of the aggregate function. It does the same thing, except that it wasn't as flexible as aggregate. For example, you can't ignore error values with subtotal. In this case, let's say I just want to ignore error values, so I'm going to go with this option. Next is the array. This is my range that I want to aggregate, which is this one right here. The last option doesn't apply to us. It's something you need if you use the small and large functions. Now we're just going to close bracket and press enter, and we're going to get our number. Let's update the number formatting of this. Now at this point, I'm only ignoring error values. I'm not ignoring hidden cells. So if I restrict this to employee related expenses and click on OK, I still get the sum of the entire amount column. To ignore hidden cells, I can change my option here. 5 would ignore hidden rows. 3 ignores it all, so I'm just going to go with that and press enter, and I get the sum of the visible rows only. So now if I change this to other non-operating income, I get the sum of these two. Now let's quickly take a look at another example. I have the total revenue here. I'm using the aggregate function to sum these two. I'm doing the same for total cost, again another aggregate function. Now what's the benefit of using these here? Well, if I want to calculate profit before tax, I can just use the aggregate function, go with sum, and for my option here, I can say ignore nested, subtotal, and aggregate functions, and then as my array, select this whole range. When I close bracket and press enter, it only adds up these values and it ignores anything that has aggregate or subtotal in it. If you also wanted to ignore hidden rows and error values, you can switch your option to number 3.